Interestingly enough, you say that my grandpa, he spoke 5 languages. And that's part of the reason why he did all the stuff he did during World War II. He was all over the place in World War II because he spoke 5 languages and he would intercept messages and translate them. And it makes him sound pretty cool. He was a piece of shit. He was terrible. He was a terrible person, but he can speak 5 languages. But anyways, I think that's going in the video, dude. I think that's going in the video. That's good.
Put that in.
Yeah, that's good viewership. But anyways, so let's go ahead and officially get started. So what's up, everybody? Now that you've suffered through that weird halfway conversation about my grandpa, Marco Carter Vox Academy here, and I'm excited because I have Jón, what's up here, hanging out with me, and we're going to be talking about, here's the pop quiz. This is actually a good question, how to pronounce your band, because me and some of my friends have a disagreement, right? So I'll put myself on the chopping block. I say IOTUNN. They say IOTUNN, and I say there's no chance. Who's right?
You're absolutely dead on, man.
Yes. See, it's because I played God of War, so now I'm a pro at everything mythological. I know it all. Yeah. But I'm really excited. I'm really excited to talk about this song and to talk about your band and to talk about your voice because it's cool stuff. Before I just nerd out at you, actually, let me ask you, we already talked a little bit about it, but how are you doing? How are you feeling? How's life up in the very far north of Faroes? Tell me about it.
Yeah, well, it's good. It's good. We're in the dead of winter. Basically, shortest day is coming up in 2 days, I think. 21st is our shortest day. And so we're basically just, living in darkness and trying to stay festive for the holidays and stuff. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
It's good. It's good.
I got to tell you, I was, when we started the call, I was immediately so happy. It brought me joy to see you in that highly Nordic sweater. I was like, shit, bro, I should have put on a bolo tie or like a cowboy hat or something. I should have brought something to the table.
Yeah, you didn't represent. I can mention that my girlfriend has knitted the sweater.
Did she really?
Yeah, man.
Well, that's awesome.
It's a prized possession.
Yeah, it looks really good. So good job. Good job to your girlfriend. But I'm very excited to talk about your band. And I'll tell you why. So back in the day, during the era of the COVID, the Rona, I was stumbling around YouTube, as you do, and I was looking at my YouTube recommended. I can't remember exactly what year it was, but there was this like Slay at Home video, and there was this band with a name I had no idea how to pronounce, but it had the little thorn symbol, which I know in Faroese is a little different than in like Icelandic or things. But I was like, I'll check this out, and I'm gonna be honest with you, man. Now that's a different band. How do you say that? I always say Hamfer, but.
Yeah, well, that would be maybe the Icelandic way to say it, but Hamfer, the ed is the letter at the end. It's silent, so we just go Hamfer.
Okay, I'm still gonna mess it up, but Hamfer. I'm probably like a quarter of those listens, and it's specifically because of how you write a vocal melody, dude. And it's specifically because of some of the really interesting, kind of strange, but very cool things you do with your voice. Those 2 songs, which I'm not even going to try to pronounce them. I'm not gonna struggle through it. But those 2 songs and the way you write melodies and the way you resolve your melodies, it really is very interesting to me. And it like, if I could risk being so bold, it reminds me a little bit of how I like to resolve melodies. If I, like not necessarily always ending on the note you would expect and like hitting all these different places. So after that, I found this band. This was a dumb moment for me. I found this band IOTUNN, and I was like, this sounds a lot like the guy from this sounds. And I went for probably like 6 or 7 months being like, oh yeah, these 2 singers, they're so similar. And then somebody was like, one of my students was like, it's the same guy. And I was like, oh God. But I really like how dynamic and interesting your music is here. And you've picked an almost 14-minute song for us to check out. So let me ask you, tell me about this song. Tell me about what to expect here, because this is the longest song I've ever went over with a guest, but I'm excited to do it. So tell me about it. Give me a little insight here.
Cool. Well, I'm happy that you weren't scared off by the mammoth length of this, but I think it might be my favorite song so far that we've done. Well, the length is, I guess, arbitrary depending on what you're trying to do and say, but it's sort of a kickoff to the album. It's the album is a kind of concept album with a story. There's this kind of deep time tribesman who's discovering there's something going on within his tribe that's not really, well, there's something dark and ominous, and especially with his brother, who used to be rebellious when he was a kid, and very inspiring person who's sort of totally lost his ability to even speak, and is just kind of a hollow shell. So he decides there's something going on. I have to figure out a way to move in my own directions and take the words that my brother used to say, and kind of be my own man and head out into the world. So that's kind of like a big epic, kind of describing all his emotions before deciding to leave his safe place for his birthplace. And it goes through all kinds of things. Like, it goes through almost, I would say, every category of atmosphere and music style that we encompass in the band. So it's quiet sections. It's very emotional, and there's some proggy sections. There's some wild soloing. There's blast beats, and there's everything more or less. And it ends hugely. And I'm just really, really proud. You're mentioning vocal melodies, but I think this is probably the song where I'm like, it really clicked, and something like, it came very easy to me. The writing melodies, usually it doesn't. I mean, it's usually a grueling process for me, to be honest. but this, like, a lot of parts of this song came quite quickly, and the lyrics also came quite quickly, and it's very immediate. It's not super shrouded in weird metaphors and stuff. So it has real direct emotion, which I really like.
Well, I'm very excited about that. And that's part of the reason why I was open to doing such a long song, because I am familiar with the band, of course. And I was like, there's going to be enough here for these 14 minutes to be worth it. You know what I mean? There's going to be, because there are some bands that they write like 10-minute songs, and you're like, why though? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? But it's interesting.
I asked the other guys in the band the same thing, but usually I have to eat my words anyway.
Yeah, I tend to really love long songs too. Like, if it's maybe it's a fault, but if I see a song suggestion and it's 3 minutes, I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. So to the viewer, let me tell you how this is going to work. Now you may be thinking this is going to be a long video, right? We've got a couple hours here till my first lesson. It's going to be a longer video. So what I would invite you to do is, I'm going to do this in 3-minute sections. Usually I pause when I hear something interesting. If we do that, this is going to be like a 4-hour video, and we can't do that. Well, we could, but I got lessons. I got students who want me to show up, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to do 3-minute sections, and that'll get us roughly, and then we'll just finish out the end. And then we're going to talk about it. So for anybody watching this video, I would advise put on your headphones, lay your phone down, engage with YouTube the way I do, which is while I'm washing dishes or, doing the laundry or watering the plants in the garden in the back. Because there's going to be a lot of cool stuff to talk about. And it's going to be really interesting too, because genre wise, this is very different than what we normally go over, but this is a lot of what I find myself listening to. So with that, I think we just get going. What do you think?
Let's hit it.
All right, let's do it. What is this little pencil here? Annotate? I don't like that. I'm just pushing play. All right, here we go.
I've known you so long and never saw cause for alarm. Recall our childhood song, an oath to never lay down arms. I feel a coming end. It's as if I see through it all. Now would you know if I was gone? An epoch of brothers dissolves. To leave you is a sin. For my own story forced to begin. I see you here, but you're so far away, so far.
Okay, we're going to pause at that part because it's a terrible place to pause. But that's about 3 minutes. So let's talk about it. I actually was taking notes because I was like, dang, this is a lot longer than I normally do. So this is a cool section. And I think this is a very good song for people who may not have heard of your band to be getting like a first exposure. Before I talk about the singing, I want to talk about the vibe, bro. I want to talk about the vibe. I'm almost getting like 1980s, 1990s, like fantasy movie, like Legend, like Labyrinth, which, like, by the way, fucking, I love that shit.
Oh yeah, man, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, like, so the moment I heard that, like, bing, you know, like I felt like either David Bowie or Tim Curry was gonna walk out, and like, yeah. And I love that sound, and I love that y'all have hit that vibe without it sounding, because sometimes people try to bring in those vibes and it feels very forced. It's like anachronistic. It's like it doesn't belong here. But this feels very, is that a vibe you were going for? Was your intention to have sort of like a retro fantasy feel, or was it a kind of a happy accident?
Well, not really. I think we were not going for that particularly. We just really like that. You know, like you, we like that vibe. We like that sound. We love synth stuff.
Yeah.
When it's done right, you know, and as you say, putting in fantasy and metal, you usually quickly think of power metal, which I guess, there's some stuff in our music that kind of vibes with power metal, I guess, but it's not as straightforward. So I think we really like to kind of mix the thing. So this is kind of a very sad, kind of maybe not doomy, but still very kind of like deliberate pace, and kind of I think this is kind of like more like a reaching for the stars type vibe that we go for in the other instruments as well. Like a lot of the guitar work and the guitar tone is also very like high reaching, but the actual retro vibe, I think it's just basically because we like it, And, because that wasn't really in the demos necessarily. It's kind of stuff that we developed like during the later parts of the process, and it was like, well, let's try and put in a little flourish here and there, and that actually became like a vital part of the beginning to me, at least.
And it's a smart move for such a long song, because you have this open section, which is basically just guitar, your voice. Those are like the dominant sounds. And then we open up, but we're opening up slowly, right? We're not automatically like tech deathing it out, which like, hey, that could be cool. But there's a very slow build here that I'm sensing. Now let's go ahead and talk about the singing. So the singing at the beginning is very cool for a couple reasons. And you do a couple things that are kind of like again, as somebody who's put a lot of listens on that Slay at Home video, a lot of listens there. I've definitely picked up on a couple things that you do with your voice that I really like. And the first one, there's no chance we can go back because now that it's on Spotify, I don't remember the timestamp. So, but there's a certain way that I'm sure you're aware of, but that you sort of roll vowels around in your mouth. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the word story, there's a lyric where you end on the word story, and I don't remember the actual melody here, because this is a rare actual first time listen. But like, if it was like, story, you don't say story and then hold it, story. Yeah. Just like it literally sounds like you're rolling the vowel around, but it sounds cool. Is that something you do on purpose, or does it just kind of feel natural to let the note kind of go its own way?
I think it feels natural. It's, I think maybe more subconsciously than consciously, I have a feeling of being a narrator, and somehow it's in this particular section, at least, it's very emotional. Kind of, there's some very raw emotion going on, and where this main guy is sort of lamenting his brother's descent into mental vacuousness, and so he's that, yeah. When it goes into those types of sections, I think I more subconsciously sort of tell a story with a certain inflection that kind of, it works itself in my mouth, I guess you could say. It's not something I've thought about too much, but there's a certain theatricality over it, I think, that that I tend to gravitate towards. Yeah.
And that makes sense too, because, in this first section, your voice is very vulnerable, right? Like, I don't have like the perfect ear. There are some people who they're like, they're musicians, producers, coaches, and they can hear just everything that's going on production wise. I don't have that perfect ear, but I'm 99.9% sure there ain't no Melodyne on the intro here. And that, if that was a conscious choice, is a smart choice, because one thing is that a lot of people will utilize, it's hard to describe, but they'll utilize just a touch of pitch correction the same way we make quantized drums. It's not faking the singing. It's just polishing the singing, which I'm totally in favor of. I've done that in Kardashev. But here it sounds extremely raw and extremely organic. And I think that if that was a conscious choice, it was a smart choice, because if you polish too much, the emotion tends to go away. And you hear a lot of vulnerability. Now, that's not me, inversely saying like, oh, you were off pitch. Your pitch is awesome. Right. But it has the organicness that pitch correction often removes, especially the way that your singing voice tends to slide and bend a lot. You have a very like what I call elastic voice. And we'll talk more about that, I'm sure, in the coming minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's actually that first part I wasn't involved directly in the mixing other than, giving notes on bounces and stuff, but because I'm the only one living out of Denmark, or not in Denmark.
Right.
But I was very adamant that first part had to be as naked as made sense. It should be very kind of at the forefront, naked, kind of vulnerable, as you say. And yes, I can definitely hear, all right, well, maybe I could have pitched that a little bit better or whatever, but in the end, it's not really about the best pitched take. It's about there's how it is, there's a rawness to a certain take. It can be just one note that really hits it, but that kind of saves the whole take. And so that was sort of like, all right, well, this is where I'm really telling it, and we're keeping it, and let's not mess too much with that.
No, I didn't. Shit, I mean, I listen to voices professionally all day, every day, and I didn't hear any pitch where I was like, I'm I don't have perfect pitch where I can hear a note and be like, oh, that's a D sharp 4. But I definitely am very keen, very good at hearing when things are out of key, and I didn't hear anything there where I was like, oh no. It just
that's good.
To me, you know what it felt like? It felt like standing in a small, like cozy place, like a coffee shop or a pub or something, and hearing a really good singer singing in that location. It had that coziness, that emotionality to it, which that's kind of what I'm referencing. Melodyne or any sort of pitch correction can sometimes kill that, because even though both are pitch corrected, one sounds more mechanical. And I think that was a really smart move. Let's go ahead and let's keep going. But yeah, I think the storytelling that you're trying to do, the vulnerability you're trying to show, especially with the differences of airiness, right? Sometimes your voice is very connected. Hey, other times it's airier. Hey, and moving in and out of that really does a lot. So I'm going to go back just a smidge, which is going to make it an editing nightmare for me. Not really.
Good luck.
But it's not too bad. It's not too bad. Cool. But we're going to come into some belts here, which is like, if anybody's never heard your voice, this is where things are about to get pretty good. So here we go. All right, that's not exactly 3 minutes, but that's a clear and easy transition for us to pause during. So I kind of want to let you talk about this section first. Normally I say all my stuff and then throw it at you, but I kind of want to get, because there are three main things that I can hear that I want to talk about. There are three main things that I can hear that I want to talk about. Do you want me to go first, or do you have any thoughts or things you want to throw out about this section that you might find interesting?
Well, you already piqued my interest with three main things.
Okay.
So I don't know.
So one is that, and I promise I'm not just saying this because I just showed you the Labyrinth vinyl that I have. Has anybody ever told you that the way you sing is similar, not that you sound like, but the way you sing is kind of similar to David Bowie in a lot of ways?
Nope.
Well, I'm here to tell you that it's kind of similar. So if David Bowie were to sing something and you were to sing something, nobody would confuse your voices because tonally you both sound very, very different. And you sing very, very different genres of music. David Bowie was singing like whatever David Bowie was singing. I love David Bowie's, like I think his music's phenomenal, not just in Labyrinth, but all over the place. But there are a couple things that the two of you do that really like are so similar to each other, and they're things that I really like. The first thing is the relationship with vibrato, right? He'll roll words around and then just toss a little bit of a vibrato in at the end, just like this cheeky little vibrato. Like he'll do like, no one can blame you for walking away. True love's intention, no life injection. It's just like this little, oftentimes when people, they're going to have no vibrato, or the note's going to hold out and it's going to have vibrato for like the whole last half of the note. But he just goes like, and it sounds awesome. Yeah. I love it. And the second thing is the like periodic darkening of the voice, right? Obviously I'm singing Labyrinth stuff because that's on my mind. But in a lot of his singing, he starts bright and then goes dark. Life can be easy. It's not always well. And it's like, it's got like a very, if you do it on its own, it sounds kind of goofy. But when you put it to a really good melody and in a really good song, it's like, and you tend to belt with darkness in your voice, which maybe that's just like that Nordic spirit in you, that wintry, dark, but that's something that's really interesting. And that's something I actually want to ask you about, because you don't hear that a lot normally. And as a fellow belty boy, somebody who belts a lot, for me, when I'm belting, it's bright. It's very twangy. It's very like, where you have like this darkness to your voice, especially it's almost like a lot of the time, not always, but a lot of the time, the higher you go, the more like, you get in your voice, and somehow you make it sound cool. Somehow you make it sound so cool. Yeah. So are those intentional things you do with your voice, or is it just like, this is how you've learned to sing and this is what was easy for you?
Well, I guess it's a little bit of both. It's intentional in the way that I know what I think sounds good. And, I when I started singing, which was quite late in my teens, when I was around 18 or so, I listened to a lot, Camelot, the band.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Roy Khan, the singer.
Yeah.
I think there's some kind of there's been some kind of emulation going on during that particular time. I was listening to a lot of music, but I was super infatuated with his voice, still am. And he has a very emotive voice that kind of does a similar thing that you're talking about, where he really, he moves a lot of like. He rolls the vowels around on the top of his mouth, you know what I mean, on the roof of his mouth, and he goes like darker tone, lighter tone, almost constantly. It's very theatrical, but it's super clear and clean as well, and so it's I've always been fascinated with that. So I guess now maybe subconsciously I've emulated that a little bit. but I think I just think it sounds good, but it's also maybe just a lack of discipline as well. You know what I mean? Because okay, well, maybe this could be better if I just stuck to something a little more uniform and but
Boo.
it's not really, I guess it's not really that natural to me, both physically but also in tastes, because yeah, uh, you're talking about maybe deathcore and maybe
Mhm.
not deathcore necessarily, but metalcore and stuff like that. Those are very, very different kinds of singing that I never really gelled much with,
Right.
and they often tend to. It's very varied, of course, but what I've heard often they tend to stick to holding a flat note,
Mm.
a note, not too much vibrato, not too much variation in, like, it's very clear hooks that are being delivered, kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I don't know. Somehow that always kind of put me off a little bit. Somehow I don't know, but I guess I just gravitate towards the more kind of like heavy metal singers, Dio and Bruce Dickinson, whatever, and
Yeah.
that theatricality of it. So utilizing those kind of all the kind of emotiveness that goes on, it's more natural to me, I suppose.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense too. And I think that that's like, there's a certain value. This is going to sound weird coming from a vocal educator, but I find that sometimes, a lot of the times actually, my favorite singers or screamers are people who just kind of figured it out. You know what I mean? Maybe they had some lessons here or there, but most of it was motivated by following their voice. And, you know, I think that sometimes I'm going to talk about educating a little bit, but I'm going to keep it brief. Sometimes as educators, we're like, people like me are very focused on teaching you the right way to do it. And I think that what we should be focused on is helping you learn about, experience, and feel your voice in a structured and safe way. Because like a lot of times, especially depending on the genre, if, like, for example, if you had like a jazz coach, right? If you were learning to sing with a jazz coach and you started doing that darkening while you started belting, they probably, jazz coaches in the comments, no, but they would probably be like, oh, don't darken like that. But like, it sounds cool though, so and it's giving you like a very unique tone. And then the third thing I wanted to talk about is you made a really smart move. You made a really smart move. So the song changes dynamically, right? It goes from the big open stuff, and then we get some blast beats, and we get some hints, right? The guitars are telling us things are going to get heavy because we get that really like bright, like, tone coming through. And then like, you were showing like the bass, everything's progressing, and you were singing cleans still, very, very similar tempo, very similar vibe. And so I thought it was smart how, to keep it interesting, you slowly increased the grit and the weight and the power in your voice. So even though you're singing roughly the same melody and roughly the same like cadence, right? It's getting heavier, it's getting meaner. The tone of your voice is getting like growlier, right? So you're continuing to grow. That's something that you run into a lot of times with vocalists, is that they stay in one spot while the song is changing, and they don't they don't do it well. It gets a little bit boring, and it can be hard to do that, right? There have been times where I've written a section and then I go back and I listen, I'm like, well, that's boring as fuck. You know what I mean? So the progression of like grit and gravel in your voice was pretty solid. Is that, like, you talked about how writing melodies can be kind of grueling. I agree. Is that something that like was a pretty obvious choice to you, or is that something that kind of developed over time where you were like, how am I going to keep this section so dynamic and cool when the instruments are so dynamic and cool?
Yeah. This was pretty tough. Well, there's this section we just listened to. It's like an A-B thing, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it's a kind of chorus that kind of gets a little bit more upbeat, and then but it starts with a verse with more kind of like legato tones, and it's like more a bit less like really far-reaching. But the first part, the A part, that came really naturally and quickly because the dynamics of the piece, the chords that are working behind me and stuff, that all kind of leaves me basically in the first verse, I basically just sing two notes, one note for the most part, and then I go down for one time and up again. So it's basically one note that I'm singing the first verse, the whole first verse, which is totally conscious choice, and I think I'm very proud of that. And the second verse, the second A part, is more varied, just to, as you said, to create this kind of progression. But the B sections, with the spangly lead and stuff like that, that was really tough. That took a year to really figure out, I think.
Whoa, hell yeah. Wow.
Yeah, because I'm my worst enemy. I'm my harshest critic. So I figured some stuff out, and they were like, "Yeah, that's cool," and I'm like, "No, it's not cool." And I do another thing, and I change it, and they were like, "Well, all right, well, no, we have to get used to that one because we thought the other one was really cool, but I think maybe that one's really cool." And I'm like, "No, it's not cool at all." And so I got a little, because maybe it was a little bit too bouncy, and I want to stick to that darker feel, but in the end we hit something that really works. But the putting on the heat, the growly kind of like this distortion on the voice a little bit, that was a very, very late choice. It was like, all right, well, we need to differentiate these pieces a little bit more, maybe just because they're in the same, like the atmosphere hangs on to the same kind of hook, but so if the voice distorts a little bit in those B sections, then we can separate them a little bit more. So that's basically my like the way that formed. And this distortion that I use there, it's something that I'm like recently have started developing, because I've done like a thrashy, shouty type of distorted clean vocal, which is really harsh, and then I've the clean one. But I'm trying to hit something where I can like gradually go and put a little bit on, a little bit more, a little bit less, that kind of thing. So that's pretty cool. You learn as you go. Even after singing for quite some time. Yeah.
You listen, I will be the first, like, even me, like, I will sometimes be at the mic and be like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing, or, oh, I need to learn how to do this. And that's part of the fun, right? Well, that's interesting that you say that, because like, not only was it a conscious choice, it was a choice that you took a long time to perfect. And like, see, I'm similar to you, but I'm kind of an idiot, because I know that I am kind of a perfectionist with my melodies and stuff. But what happens is I wait till the last second. There have been songs on our last album, especially, and the one that we have an album we haven't released yet, but it's finished. And there are songs where I wrote them the night before, and I was like, ugh. And I just have to kind of come to terms with, like, that's not how I want that to be, but I don't have any time. And I'd love to have a good reason for that, but I'm just kind of a lazy piece of shit. So,
I'm right there with you. Your process sounds a lot like mine.
Well, because I hate, you know what I hate? I hate when you write vocals too early and then your drummer changes the fill, or your drummer goes from like a to like a, and you're like, everything's different now.
Well, then you have to actually assert yourself as a singer sometimes, which is, I think I don't know how singers are very different, I suppose, and usually known as like prima donnas or whatever. But I think we actually just kind of deal with whatever and try to fit in, or I do that a lot.
Yeah.
And but I think it's pretty important, even though it rarely becomes that way, that to get in on the songwriting early. So as soon as there are ideas on the table, just start. But I think my mind usually goes like, all right, well, what's the whole of the song? Like, how do I, what I sing on one section or on one idea will influence the rest of the song somehow. And, and it's kind of like, it's not a great, well, maybe a good way of thinking in some respects, but it makes it really hard to get in early with the vocals.
Yeah. I definitely have a little bit of that prima donna-ness that you're talking about. Cause for me, like I won't even touch a song till it's mostly done. And my bandmates know that. They'll be like, hey, have you started writing lyrics? And I'm like, what percentage done would we all say that this song is? And they're like 30. And I'm like, no, I not only have I not, I will not. But I balance it out by not being impatient. And I do help with the, I'll help with guitars. I don't play guitar, but I'll help come up with guitar melodies and I'll have, positive feedback. But really, like, I don't touch a song until at least the drums are mostly finalized. So this last minute thing, I have to own that I kind of do that to myself a little bit. Yeah. I do it to myself a little bit.
As long as it works,
Mostly works.
Yeah.
So kind of funny story, not really. When I was younger, when people said prima donna, I thought they were saying pre-Madonna, like before Madonna. And so I thought that there was just like this, I thought that like singers before Madonna were just really like finicky. And Madonna like somehow revolutionized. I mean, I was like 10, but I was like, yes, Madonna must have been like the BCAD switch for singers or something, Yeah.
She's definitely known to be kind of a very level type, kind of common folk,
not outlandish or anything at all. Also, I just realized, I got Access All Worlds pinned over here. Look at that.
That's important stuff.
It's important stuff. All right, so we're back. Let's keep going. Yeah, see that quick little vibrato at the end of day there, and how you kind of.
I can totally hear what you're saying. Yeah,
it's there. Like if David Bowie was still alive, I'd hit him up, because obviously we'd be texting,
Sure, man.
Yeah, of course, and I'd be like, yo, you should do a IOTUNN cover, bro. You'd kill it. I don't know. He didn't do like a lot of that, like vocal cord connected belting though. He was more of a flip into head voice kind of guy.
Yeah. But well, when I hear him in my head, he did a lot of that kind of sliding tone stuff as well.
Yeah, he did.
I think is so. I now that you all were broke into the Bowieverse, I kind of, all right, well maybe we're more alike than I thought. Yeah,
you're gonna hear it, and I'm telling you, I said, I like a lot of his music, but I do think my favorite work of his is on Labyrinth. Although he does have the best worst music video of all time, where I can't remember the guy's name.
That one with Mick Jagger?
Yeah. And they're just dancing in the street. Oh God,
dancing. That's what it's called. Yeah.
It's like horrible, but I love it. Horrible, but I love it. I watch probably once every couple months. I just watch that to be like, dang, simpler times. Can you imagine? But anyways, so let's talk about the growls and let's talk about the screams here. So here you have two very distinct types of tones. Like you said, you've got your lows and you've got your highs, right? You've got these two tones. So let's start talking about the lows, right? So we talked a little bit about it before I started hitting record, but if someone were, and this is, I'm asking this question kind of vaguely on purpose, because I want to hear how you relate to your distortion, right? And the reason I'm asking you this is mostly for the viewer, because oftentimes the main people who come to my channel and the main people who come to me for lessons are new people. For whatever reason, I attract a lot of beginners, right? Which is fun because I love giving beginner lessons. Love it. I could talk about breath support 101 all day. I think it's so fascinating. But one of the biggest things you have to do as a new screamer is, rather than looking at what people tend to do, is they go look up all the definitions. Okay. Well, I could look up the definition of fancy, like a tarte tatin, right? Like a really fancy meal. But that definition doesn't mean I know how to make it, right? Doesn't mean I know how to cook it. What's going to get you farther is having a relationship and understanding of how the ingredients work on their own and together, right? So if someone was to ask you, well, I guess I am asking you what you're doing there. Wow, Mark, that is so broad, it's almost useless. I agree. What are you doing there? Let's talk about it.
What am I doing there?
Let's leave it that broad. Let's leave it that broad so we can learn how you relate to your distorted voice, right? Those lows. What are you doing there?
Well, yeah, where to even start? I've never talked about my growling technique because...
Really?
Well, I've always said that I don't really have one. But I guess I do have one.
Are we listening to the same song?
Well, yeah. Well, you can make a lot of sounds without knowing what the fuck you're doing. But no, it's still it's something that started back in even back when I started singing. I more or less after maybe a year, I wanted to try out growling, and Åkerfeldt was a big inspiration, and that kind of 90s death metal growling was something that, but generally all kinds of stuff that sounded like one tearing one's soul apart, trying to utter some darkness into the world. But I think I just found something that worked, and it's like most of the distortion is in the roof of the mouth, and it's frontally done as possible. So I'm using a lot of air and force. So it's not like minute techniques that are kind of like, it's loud. It's loud growling with like forceful growling, which requires a lot of physical effort and requires me to be in a pretty decent shape and, you know, well hydrated and all these kind of things, you know.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
That's interesting what you say about the distortion being on the roof of your mouth. That's actually a really good sign. That's a good sign. Is that the same sensation you had when you did that Slay at Home video back in the day? Who's calling me? Get out of my face. Get out of here. Spam calls on my phone. So that was a similar front of the face feeling that you had?
Well, yeah. It's that's the thing I've been sticking to ever since I kind of wanted to be able to sustain, you know. I mean, I think the general rule, if it hurts, you're doing it wrong, you know. That's basically, you know, if there's something that kind of leaves you, if it doesn't feel natural, and you're maybe hoarse after a gig or something like that, then you know, that's basically like I've tried to be very, very conscious of those things, like that they're not hurting me in any way.
Sure.
But it can get close, you know, if I'm not like on and you know, really centered and that kind of thing. So so yeah, it's a bit volatile, to be honest, but it's served me well this far.
Yeah, no, I would agree. So what you're describing, also, this song is a vibe. So we're gonna light some incense here. I just realized I have.
Oh, nice.
I just realized I have some on my desk, so we're gonna.
Well,
I'm a big incense
guy. I'm
guy.
gonna do the same thing.
Hey, there we go. Hell yeah.
Because I've got a lantern hanging.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you do. Look at that. Yeah, exactly. See, it's a vibe. We got a vibe. I always I'm a big like incense guy, sometimes to my wife's disdain. But you know, you gotta bring the vibes in. So what's your ooh, and the smoke is getting caught on camera. That's neat. So what you're describing, you may have been told this before. Wow, this is very like with like the sweater and the lantern and like the shadows and the flame. This is very like what's that black and white movie? Lighthouse. It's a horror movie.
Oh, The Lighthouse.
Yeah, you spilled your beans. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, that's
The Lighthouse.
Stuff.
I can't remember.
The Lighthouse. Yeah, that's an awesome film.
Yeah, see, I had to watch it in 2 sittings, and I think that ruined it for me because I remember coming away from that being like, I don't know if it really vibed, but I had to watch it in like first half, and then like 3 days later, I watched the second half. So that's on me. But anyway, so the growl you're describing, you may have been told this before, is a very fundamental, very good false chord growl. It's what it is, right? It is essentially exactly as you're describing. Basically, what we're doing is we're not using our vocal cords. We're not going, we're taking this mechanism, right? That we use to clear our throat. And this is what I always tell people. I'm like, false chord vocals are baked in our DNA. Like we are built to do them, right? If we went back like 300,000 years and found mitochondrial Eve, you know, everybody's mommy, if you go back far enough, and she was eating something and she couldn't go and she choked and died, that'd be it, right? So we have like this and we build it on that, right? So the description of that forward placement, the distortion being on the roof of your mouth, the excess of air, but the not like painful strain in your throat. You're describing just a very healthy, solid false chord vocal, which is used by goodness, so many people. You've got Amon Amarth. You've got one of my favorite vocalists, Alex Tayan from Black Tongue, right? Johnny Davey, Job for a Cowboy, right? And it's a really great and versatile vocal to use, and it sounds really good. I'm going to assume, I could be wrong, you double track the growls?
No, never. As
Single
rarely
track
as I possibly can. Yeah.
Oh, really? Why is that?
I don't want to.
Bro, I'm a double tracker. Well,
go ahead. You know, be my guest. You know, I can do it with one. Well, you know,
it sounds gnarly, dude. It sounds really, really thick and girthy.
Well, usually I'm I don't feel myself that I've never had any need to do it. I think the first time I ever did any doubling was with this album, maybe because of the
Oh, really?
producer. He asked Jacob Hansen. He said like,
Uh-huh.
well, can you do maybe doubles for this or that or whatever, and so
Hmm.
I doubled some cleans. I think it was basically just the cleans, really. Like 1 or 2 sections, I did some doubling just to punch it up in the mix.
Hmm.
But the growling, usually, if I double it, it's usually because I want to create the Glenn Benton effect, so
Yeah,
do a kind of a
exactly.
spectrum type thing. Yeah.
I'll be honest, the main reason I double track all my stuff is because working with producers, after so many times of being like, hey, can you send me doubles, and me having to go back to the mic and do everything over again, I just, if they want the double, they'll use it. If they don't want the double, they won't use it.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Yeah.
where I'm at. But they sound really, for talking about how you use a lot of air, and this is a really good sign with these false chord vocals as well. It doesn't sound like you're using a lot of air. You know what I mean? And because there are these very distinct, because like you said, it's a volatile vocal style. It really is, because if you don't have control over it, or I guess I don't even want to say, if you can't guide it, right? Because you can't stranglehold these vocals. You can't, like for this false chord sound, you can't grab it and force it to do something. You have to sort of project and yet relax it out at the same time. You get this very distinct sound of like, where you're like just dumping all your air. And so you have a really nice balance. Now, how does this contrast, or how about these higher screams that you're doing? Because you have these higher screams that you do that are very bright, very aggressive. Talk to me about those. Talk to me about the sensation and the process of making those vocal sounds.
Well, I think that they're basically, it's the same thing, but of course your mouth, you're doing a lot of like you're sort of doing a lot of mouth opening or closing kind of stuff. I think that's what I do when doing lows. I'm maybe perching my lips more and keeping things inside the mouth more and loosening out. And then with the higher ones, they go straight out the throat, maybe. But I think it has something to do with tone as well. I try to move the tone up and down, but I honestly have no idea how I'm doing it. So it's just sort of, well, I want to try and sound like this, and I know I can sound like that. And I guess it's a lot to do with tongue movement, pushing the tongue up towards the roof of the mouth, creating smaller spaces maybe for the thinner sounds and stuff like that.
Yeah.
While maybe curling the tongue at the bottom to create the rumbly effect when doing deeps. That's more or less kind of how I think about it, but I might even be wrong about
no,
that.
Not necessarily. A lot of it is because because we're not using our vocal cords, we're not getting phonatory source from the vocal cords. We have to find different ways of, we're not changing the tone of the voice with the thickness or the length of the chords, right? Which, we don't have that pitch in the same way. A lot of ways that many people lift from like those low rumbly to the higher it has like a lot to do with twang, right? Like if I oftentimes when students are trying to learn how to do high screams and they're having a hard time, I have them learn how to sing like what I call a bad Broadway singer. So like a hello, my baby, hello, my darling, hello, my ragtime gal. And that sounds terrible, but you put distortion through that and it sounds really cool, right? Yeah. Those high screams, there's a lot of control. There's a lot of control on those as well. And they sound like really, I guess connected, I will say. Do you feel like you're using more or less air on those higher screams?
Less. I'm most certainly using less air. I think, and I guess it was a little bit misleading to say like a lot of air. A lot of air is meant in the sense that I do spend a lot of air, but as you say, there's a controlled letting it out.
Yes.
It's being let out in the right amounts, or at least I'm trying to, especially when you're like, if I do shorter grunts or kind of something that's a little bit less in need of sustaining, then I can push the air a little bit more and without losing anything.
Sure.
But for a long scream or something like that, that it becomes pretty evident that I'm using a lot of air, because I can't necessarily hold a scream for forever. It's I can hold a scream for a pretty long time, but a low a guttural tone, not particularly long.
Yeah.
So that control is loosened up when I'm down in a deeper voice.
Well, one way that I often describe it is that it's airy, not air inefficient, right? They're two different things, right? Like, oftentimes, especially with harsh vocalists, they'll think they're doing something wrong if they can't hold the scream as long as they would hold a clean note, right? But that doesn't really make a lot of sense, because sometimes to get the sound you want, you have to use more air. Like let's say you're doing like a really like, I can make it all feel far away. Like that is airier. So is that bad singing? No, it's an airier tone purposefully. So what you're describing is exactly how we want it to be. It's like I always tell my students, it's not a bug. The airiness or the air usage of a false chord, as long as you're using it efficiently, it's not a bug, it's a feature. You know what I mean? And they'll be like,
it's a tool.
It's a tool. Yeah. And they'll be like, oh, but I heard this guy hold his scream for 30 seconds. And I'm like, who fucking cares? Yeah, well, you're going to release a whole album of 30-second screams? Come on.
Yeah. you know? Well, and it's like, I think it's the same. Yeah. As you say, it's the same with clean singing. Like, I wish I could do that, but sometimes it's not necessarily a technique. It's some kind of physicality, or just someone's voice sounding in a particular way that you would maybe be disingenuous by mimicking, just because you have your own voice, you have your own, kind of thing. So I think I'm also pretty comfortable with, okay, well, maybe I can't hold a huge scream over like a full riff round or whatever, like full four rounds or something like that, which I thought was cool in some sections of some song I like, but that's, as you said, it's not really like, I do my own thing, and some things I can't do, which is also fine.
I'll tell you, and then we'll get back to the song, but I'll tell you, there are two things that, as a vocal coach who really almost exclusively teaches harsh vocals, that I just don't care about. I don't care about how loud you are. And I don't care about how long you can hold a scream. Does not matter to me. Because with my view is that if you put all the ingredients together properly, you will get the right dish, right? So if you're doing everything properly, your scream will be as loud as it should be, right? If we're focusing on projection, placement, support, relaxation, you'll get the volume you need. Thankfully, we live in a world with mics and interfaces and all this stuff. Anyways, I'm going to go on a tangent, so I'm going to shut myself up. Let's
I'm with you there.
Okay, good. Hell yeah. I also, this is the only take I have that's kind of controversial when it comes to harsh vocals, just harsh vocals. I also don't care about articulation at all. People are like, I can't even understand what they're saying. And I'm like, maybe that's not what they were going for. Maybe they wanted to sound like Satan in a cave. That's cool.
Yeah.
Or maybe they do want to be really articulate. For me, it's like, what's the vocalist trying to accomplish? What's the goal of the song? Because I love soy sauce. It doesn't go on vanilla ice cream, So I love articulate. I love really messy, nasty, gross vocals. Doesn't really make sense with tech death. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
Depends on what you're doing.
I absolutely agree. I think it's a matter of context and taste, of course. But no, I never understood the want for more articulation. You can read the lyrics if you want, you'll you'll find the lyrics somewhere if they're important, you know. But
Yep.
out of those three things, I might have been a little bit of a loudness elitist kind of, you know.
Yeah.
Like 90s, like the way they growled back in the 90s where they basically just yelled and shot their voices to shit, you know.
They did. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I wised up a little bit about that. But I guess I do a little bit, like that's kind of how I started, you know, just belting it out and finding out, all right, well, I can actually do something here. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, me too. Like, don't get me wrong. In my early days, I had all these preconceived notions that I have since sloughed off. You know what I mean? All right, let's keep going.
Yeah.
Let's keep going here.
Heads up, there's about 3 or 4 minutes without singing, I think.
Hell yeah.
Next.
Let's do it.
I think so.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
C5, D5, no problem. No problem. like you, I'm sure you noticed, but like I was like looking at my phone and going like, ooh, ooh. I had like a little pitch app. Cause like I said, I don't have like perfect pitch, but like it was clearly like we were clearly in 5th octave territory. And man, I'm gonna be real with you, bro. I couldn't do that outro. No. Well, if I had like a couple months, like let's say I covered this song, which like there's no chance I'm gonna do that. There's no way. Like if I had like a couple months to like really perfect it, I think I could. But like you handle like B4 through D5 so well, and you belt those notes without them sounding quacky or cry-y. You know what I mean? One way that a lot of people handle those notes, and I actually really like this, is they'll sort of do like this mixed voice cry. Like, are you familiar with the band Dirty Loops?
Vaguely.
He's one of my favorite singers. I can't remember his name because I'm a piece of shit. But he's one of my favorite singers, and he does like a very Michael Jackson cry. Like literally, like he'll sometimes be like, and it sounds awesome when he does it. It sounds killer. But when you do this, you keep that rounded, very, well, let's say storytelling, right? Because that's kind of the theme, right? Tone. And that's wild. Because for me, I have a couple songs where I hit a C5. And for me, there is no wiggle room. I have to hit that note one way, and I have to have perfect health, like lots of sleep, tons of water, no spicy food, no caffeine, no beer, right? So how hard was that outro? Especially because you like took the intro, stuck it on the end, recomposed certain parts of the melodies, right?
Yeah.
So that's a lot of foresight. I'm asking too many questions at once, but like, how did you track that? Like, because the sections in Kardashev, which are remotely like that, not nearly impressive, like that's the focus of like that day when I track those sections. Like I wake up, maybe we'll do more, but I'm going in and I'm like, okay, here's the fucking shitty part. And Nico, well, he lives in Germany now, so it won't be him, but he's like, you can do this, man. And I'm like, I don't wanna. And he's like, you can do it. And I'm like, no. But tell me about like the preparation and what you go through to track that outro, because that's crazy to me.
Well, I had a good day. That's for sure.
Good fun. You know.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
That's for sure. But well, it wasn't much of a well the story behind that's like last section is, well, yeah, we're running the same chords, we're kind of building it up, we're tying things together. It makes sense to return to the melodies and the kind of the turns of the intro. And I really love those melodies and the kind of the way they kind of develop. Sure. Yeah. So, but then if I take it an octave up, what happens then? So I just did a demo, and it was a pretty rough demo where I did maybe a few takes and it didn't sound very good. But I was like, all right, well, this is kind of a rough take. If I train this a little bit, maybe I can take it. But at the end, when we were trying to, we were actually doing some writing in the studio and stuff and I was almost like, well, all right, I think I'm just going to drop that ending and figure out something else. But I think we just kind of, we made the decision to just basically try it. And I felt good and everything. So let's just try it. And I'm pretty sure it's not really something I can properly do. And then we just pushed it through. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know. I don't remember what kind of take. I think it was like a one take thing in the end there. It's just like, whoa, all right. Okay. It's like, oh, fuck, man. Do we need another one? Well, let's not tempt fate, Yeah. But then that just means that I've pretty much laid out a minefield for myself in that ending bit there. for doing it live.
Oh
So
God.
that's going to be fun. We haven't performed it live yet. We'll do that in January. So I'm going to have to bring my A game, I guess.
You're gonna have to.
We'll see.
Yeah, you're gonna have to do. You're gonna have to do the 2-week lead up, right? That's what I would do. 2 weeks, maybe a month before you play. Like I said, perfect diet, lots of water, 8 hours of sleep every night. No, I don't know if you're into spicy food, but you know what I mean.
Well, I am, unfortunately, and I'm not very disciplined about it.
No,
but 2 weeks. Well, it's a bit over 1 week after New Year's.
You better start now. You better start now.
There's no way in hell I'm doing any kind of like New Year's and stuff, man. I'm gonna have to just try to balance it out with partying. That's how it goes.
Fair. You got crazy parties up there in the Faroe Islands? Is that like y'all crazy?
Well, nowadays, no. In my younger days, sure, but no. It's family kind of, hanging out and drinking and
sure,
eating good food and stuff. So no. It's not gonna get all wild, but there is a metal, like maybe the only metal kind of themed event the whole year. Like it's become so rare nowadays in the Faroes, but there's a metal on the 27th. There will be 4 metal bands playing different kinds of stuff, and I guess it'll be a party. And I'm doing some guest vocals on some on death metal bands, kind of. Yeah, so I guess I'm gonna have to try and be a bit careful there.
Sure. Well, you'll be all right. You'll be fine. And I guess that makes sense. Most of the time, I guess if like now maybe this might sound like short-sighted or a stupid American moment, but I would imagine that most of the time, like the shows and the festivals, you're heading down to like Denmark or Norway or Sweden. That probably makes a lot more sense to like play in Oslo than it does to play, in the Faroes. So never thought about that, but that makes sense.
Yeah. Mostly. I mean, we did 2 gigs in the Faroes this year, which is pretty good. Actually 3.
Oh, really?
So that's probably our record for the Faroes. 1 per year is more than enough usually.
Well,
but yeah. That's it.
Well, I've got about a million other things I could ask you, but I've got my first lesson of the day in 15 minutes, and we're at an hour and a half, which is less time than I thought we were going to be spending. So we're good.
All right.
But very cool song, lots of dynamics. I'm really glad that we did this one. And I hope to the viewers, I hope you watch the thing the whole way through. Like I said, just set it on the counter because there's a lot of cool stuff in here. Any other, let's see. Any other, how many tracks does this have? 8 with a runtime of 1 hour.
It's a long ass album.
Hell yeah. 8 tracks, 1 hour. Nice. That sounds like my style. But any other things you want to mention about you, your band, the other projects you've been in? These days you don't really have to tell people where to find you because everybody uses Spotify. But if there's anything you want to drop, any other announcements, now's the time for you to plug your career here.
Well, sure, man. Thanks. It's been nice talking to you. Yeah, this was really fun. I put out this album with IOTUNN in October, and then back in late March, I put out an album with Hamfer this year as well. So this has been an eventful year musically for me. And I'm very proud of both those albums, and I'm very happy to be able to make music with these amazing folks and make such diverse music. Even if it is in metal, it's very, very different stuff. So, and I do have another band, but we're inactive at the moment. But those are some really cool guys in Barren Earth, in the Finnish band. But yeah, that's me.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you for being here. Greatly appreciate it. Great song. Hopefully the viewers get a lot from it. And with that, as I always say, many thanks, much love. I'm out. Because you have to have a sign off, right? That's the rule.